Hello everyone, and welcome back to our second part of the Cities of Sigmar Warcry 2.0 review. So in this one we're just going to take a look at all the abilities for the different cities, and after that we'll have a look at what kinds of lists you could build, kind of depending on what city you're using. So first off, quick explanation about the color coding here. I felt like it would be the easiest if I just colored the fighters that have a specific rune mark in the same color, so we can at a glance see what's what there. So, for example, the double with the destroyer rune mark, well, everyone with the destroyer rune mark is marked in the same blue tone here. So we can all just quickly see who benefits from what ability. So let's get started with the city of Hammerhall. That is obviously the one that we got in the White Dwarf originally. Since then, with the new book, we have added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on top for a total of 7 cities now. So Hammerhall has a double that all fighters can use, which is add 1 to the strength and attacks for melee attacks if you're within 3 inches of an objective. So it's just straight better than Onslaught, because it also adds 1 to the strength, not only to the attacks characteristics. Only works if you're close to an objective though. Warcry is a game about objectives though. It's relatively rarely that you just have to kill things. Very often you'll have objectives. And I think this is a great ability. You're going to use that a lot. Abilities that you can use often, have a lot of use, are always great. So that one is nice. Then you have the double for the guys with the destroyer rune mark, which is add half the value to the crit damage of your next action. So for your next attack, close combat attack. That is not a great ability. It's actually, in the vast majority of cases, it's worse than having Onslaught. Onslaught will normally yield you better results. The only time this will actually be good if you have a double 5 or 6 and you only get to make 1 attack. So for example, if you moved first and then attack once. If you are swinging twice, it's definitely better to have a to use Onslaught there. So yeah, this ability also is the same across all these cities, so I'm not going to talk about it again. Then we have a double for the guys with the Swift rune mark, which is basically all your light cavalry. So the sharpshooter with grenade launch, so your outriders, pistoliers, your dark riders. Yeah, that's it apparently. I thought maybe the Sisters of Thorn had it, but they don't. So your skirmish cavalry basically. They can make a bonus disengage action for just a double. No roll needed or anything. I think that's very good. The thing is, skirmish cav is not necessarily very good, but the ability is good, so that's nice. Then you have a triple for everyone with the elite rune mark, but that's basically only for your heavy cavalry, which is the normal charge ability. So after you finish a move, you can then deal damage equal to that value of that triple to one enemy within 1 inch of you. So we get that on a lot of units. On the Preceptor, which is the Demigryph Knight, of course, the lead option on the Demigryph Knight themselves. Get it on the Wild Hunter, the Wild Rider, Dread Knight, and Drakespawn Knight. The one interesting thing is that you also get it on the Free Guild General, although he's on foot. Don't know why they did that, but apparently his 4 inches and mighty bulk allow him to do a lot of impact damage. I don't know. Whatever. He also gets the charge. And then we have a triple for everyone with the Scout rune mark. That's a lot of your ranged guys, and that is add half the value to the attack characteristics for your next ranged action. So it doesn't work for the entire activation. However, if you have a 333 or 444 that will yield 2 extra attacks, it's not bad. So, for example, for your marksman with repeater gun, that works. It does not work for the long rifle. So that, yeah, that's one of the downsides to the long rifle. He only has one shot and there's no way to buff that. Then you have your crossbowman, your handgunner. So even your cheaper ranged options can benefit from that. Your Iron Drake, the Shadow Walker, and High Sister, who are both leader options. I don't think they are worth bringing. So yeah, that's not that great. But for the Sister of the Watch as well, for the Shadow Warrior, your Guardmaster, your Black Ark Corsair, and your Dark Shot. So most of your ranged options have that triple, which is nice. It just buffs their range capabilities a lot. If you need that range damage, there you have it. And then we got a quad for all your units, which is one of your fighters, well, the one who's active right now, can make a bonus attack, and then you can pick a friendly fighter within 3 inches of you, and he can also make a bonus attack. I think that's really cool. A quad that allows you to make 2 bonus attacks is pretty awesome. Yeah, that can be very powerful. Right. Now, only the double and the quad, and that's for all the cities, are specific to the city. These 4 abilities that are tied to the specific rune marks, all of them are the same across all the warbands. So yeah, again, we're not going to talk about any of these 4 again. Then we got leader abilities. We have a double for all the leaders if you're playing Hammerhall, which is add 1 to the toughness to all fighters with the Bulwark rune mark within 3 inches. That's basically everyone who has a shield. Did not mark them here because it's not that important. It's not an actual ability they have. It's an ability that the leader has to add toughness to your Bulwark fighters. I don't think you're going to use this a lot because 3 inches is not a huge radius. The guys with the Bulwark rune mark are normally the ones who are already tougher than your other guys, so I just don't think it's that good. This ability is also one that is shared across all warbands, so you can see every warband has that same ability. Yeah, you're not going to use it a lot. And then we have an ability that weirdly also every warband has, but only one fighter can use it, and that's your Rune Lord. I called the rune mark Brain Melt because it doesn't actually appear in the book. Yeah, it's like a skull with fire on top. It's just for the Rune Lord, and he can add 1 to the melee attack characteristic for a friendly unit within 9 inches of him. So it's basically giving onslaught to someone else. I think it's a quite interesting ability. It's definitely not bad. If you want to use, like, if you have one guy you really want to deal a ton of damage, you can use the Rune Lord, give that extra damage from that, and then also use onslaught on your other guy. Then you'd get 2 extra attacks. If you attack twice, that's 4 extra dice. That can be a ton of damage. So I think it's definitely interesting. The thing is, though, you do have to bring the Rune Lord forward, and the Rune Lord himself costs a lot of points. It doesn't add a lot beyond this double. So it's a bit of a tough choice, and I think it's quite weird that only he gets this ability, and it appears across all warbands. Anyways, then we have a triple that everyone can use. So after killing an opponent, you might add 1 to the attack characteristic of all friendly units around you within 6 inches. That is obviously great. It only works for melee attacks, also for attacks with a range of 3 inch or less. But that's an amazing ability. Like we've seen this a lot, of course, between different leaders. It does have the caveat here of having to kill someone first, so that's a bit of a shame. That requires you to bring a leader that actually does killing. It's also not great with a ranged leader because he's normally not going to be in a position where you need that buff. So it kind of limits your leader options if you want to use this effectively. However, you should. If you're running Hammerhall, you need to be sure to run this ability effectively. Therefore, I would propose using lords that A, are fast enough to get into combat, and B, actually deal enough damage to kill someone. I think one of the prime examples there is the assassin. He does a lot of damage and he has movement 6, so he will definitely be able to get in where he needs to be and kill stuff. So I think the assassin is a great one, but you have many really good options here. You have the fleet master, who's very cheap. You can easily bring 2 of those, so you have access to that ability in 2 of your battle groups. You can also bring 2 assassins, by the way, but yeah, there's many options. So any of the leaders who have 5 points of damage at least, I think, are well suited to this ability. And then we have a quad for everyone with the Mystic Rune mark, which is only your mages. So the Battle Mage, the Sorceress, and your Handmaiden of the Thorn. These 3 can use the Mystic Rune mark, and you can see there is one ability with the Mystic Rune mark in every warband. It's not the same ability across the warbands though, so it's not like the Brain Melt one, which is the same ability for everyone, but every warband has a specific ability just the mages can use. In this case, it's a quad that allows you to pick one visible enemy anywhere on the battlefield, so it doesn't matter how far they are away. You throw dice equal to the value of the ability, so say you had a quad 6, that's not very likely, just hear me out here. You throw 6 dice, and then for every 2+ you deal 3 damage. That would be expected. You would be expected to roll 5 2+s here, so 15 damage. That's a ton of damage to throw across the entire battlefield. I think it's quite interesting. Is it worth bringing a mage for? That's really what you're gonna have to ask yourself. Because quads are always good. That is a great quad as well. So you're competing with that. And this does not require specific value. So I think for Hammerhall you don't really need the quad, even though it's not bad. Then we've got the Living City. Well, maybe let me give you a quick summary of Hammerhall, what I think overall. I'll do that with Average City. I think Hammerhall is going to be very competitive. It's one of the competitive choices. The double is useful for most games. The quad is brilliant, and your triple is quite potent. So you have a lot of abilities that are universally useful, and it's gonna be, yeah, it's just gonna be good. It also supports most kinds of warbands, so you're not locked into a specific build or something with this. I think Hammerhall is gonna be a good all-round warband and quite competitive. Now let's get into Living City. Living City has a double everyone can use, which is add half the value to the move characteristic for your next move. It's not a free move action, so if you're gonna double move, it's probably not better than just using the normal rush, because if you're adding 1 inch twice, you're moving 2 extra inches, which is on average what you're going to get out of this ability as well. However, it will help you if you have, say, you're running a human with 4 inches of movement, and you need to reach an enemy who's 6 inches away. Well, with rush you would only move 5 inches and wouldn't be able to reach the enemy. If you use this double and you add 2 inches to your first move, suddenly you're in range and you can attack. So that's what this is good for. It will allow you to get some extra attacks in because your movement will be just farther. So I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good double. And then obviously you have the 4 abilities we talked about. Then you have a quad everyone can use, which is your fighter first gets a bonus attack, and then he can either bonus disengage or bonus move. That can be very good. If you kill your opponent, well, keep in mind, like, obviously it's kind of close to Rampage. For Rampage, you first move and then attack. Oftentimes that's gonna be good because you're moving up and then attacking something, and then you have both your actions left to attack that. But if you're already in combat, you might as well first use your normal regular actions for attacks, attack that guy twice, then use your quad, attack him a third time. At that point he should be dead, and then you can still make a move, get somewhere where you meta next turn, or grab, for example, a treasure. Oftentimes when you kill someone who has a treasure, he drops it, but then you don't have movement left to pick it up. Well, with this quad you would have, so it's a quite good quad that allows you to get a lot of movement. It's also good for squishy fighters who don't want to stay in combat, because then you can then make the bonus disengage in case you don't manage to kill your enemy. And then we got the two doubles that everyone gets for leader abilities. We have a triple that allows you to, in your very first battle round, add 1 to the attack characteristic for all your friends within 6 inches. So it's kind of like the other one. For Hammerhall, you don't have the requirement of killing something first, so it's kind of more open that way, but it only works in the first battle round. The issue is, in many games of Warcry, the first battle rounds will be primarily moving. The second battle round and third battle round will be the ones where you really do the bunch of the fighting. So, if you're going to use this, you got to be sure that you're gonna be in fighting position turn 1, and that's gonna be tough. And then last but not least, we have the quad ability for your mages, which is all friends within. Pick one friendly unit within 9 inches of you, and then you roll a number of dice equal to the value of the ability, and you heal the result. And that's, you don't heal 1 point for every 2+ or something, but you heal the actual number shown on the dice. So say I have a quad 4, I roll 4 dice, and whatever numbers they show, that much I heal. So that can be a ton of healing. I think that's quite interesting because it's the first really good healing ability we've seen that actually will yield a lot of health points. So you could heal something up a lot with this. So it's interesting. If you're playing Living City, I think it's gonna be good to use fast moving models, because in order to make any use of this triple, you're going to have to engage first battle round. So having cavalry, probably wild riders, is going to be a good call. You might want to bring elves with movement 5. They might be able to do the job. Maybe bring an assassin with movement 6. But it's going to have to be quick fighters. Obviously, you can use your double in the first turn to get where you need to be, and then with your leader have your triple so you can fight harder. All of this is possible. However, do keep in mind that all of these are situational. I don't think they are as broadly useful as the Hammerhall abilities are, and therefore I think the Living City, you'll have to really build around that. You can't just use any build that you think is good and play Living City with it. That's not going to work. Then we got Greywater Fastness, and that's your shooting army. This is specifically made for shooting. You have a double for all your fighters, which is during the first battle round you get a bonus ranged attack. That is awesome. So you get a full free range attack for just a double. So you're going to want to roll as many doubles as you can first battle round. I know you can't influence your roll, but you can make another double with the wild dice, and then you can unload first turn already. Armies that are built around shooting will always have to do most of the damage early on anyways, before they all get engaged and eventually slaughtered. So that kind of really lends itself to that, to really unloading turn 1. I think it's very interesting. So Greywater Fastness will want to play ranged. I think they already make that quite clear with the first double. Then you have a quad for all your that all your fighters can use, which is you get 1 bonus range attack with the value of the ability added to the strength of your shot. So for all the strength 3 ranged guys, that's gonna be quite interesting because they are suddenly gonna be strength 4 to 6, so adding 1 to 3 extra strength, of course. Sorry, it's plus value, so you could add up to 6 strength. Not that you need 6 strength for anything, but yeah, can be interesting. However, it's a quad, and you're essentially only getting 1 bonus attack, and no ranged attack is like as massive as some of the melee attacks are. So it's not going to yield a ton of extra damage. Keep that in mind. For a quad, I don't know if that's that great. Then we have a double for every fighter. Sorry, that's of course the same double we already had. Interestingly, these guys get another triple, which only the Rune Lord can use. And that triple is add 1 to the crit damage for ranged attacks made by friends within 6 inches. So all your friendly shooty guys around you are going to get more crit damage out there. I think it's interesting. It's not gonna be a huge thing, but for a triple, you can definitely use it. It doesn't have any requirements, so I think it's really not bad putting the Rune Lord, sticking the Rune Lord inside your bunch of ranged guys and then shooting as much as you can. Also, we have the quad that also only the mage can use, and for this warband, it's reducing the amount of attacks, so you do -1 to the attack characteristic for all enemies within 9 inches of him. That is a big bubble, and it can really help keep your guys alive. I think that's an amazing quad. It's probably better than this quad, so therefore I feel like a mage would be a good addition to a Greywater Fastness army. Keep in mind, you already want to be shooting anyways. So having a guy who's adding another shooty attack like the Battle Mage or maybe even the Handmaiden is not that bad. You're going to deal some damage at range. You can sit within all your other ranged guys and fire away as well, and then use that quad to keep everyone alive. I think it's quite interesting. I think I'm very interested to play Greywater Fastness. I think it's going to be fun. It's not going to be competitive. Greywater Fastness and ranged guys are not going to be your competitive choice for this warband, but they're interesting. Then we've got Phoenicium, so the Phoenix Temple, essentially. You have a double for everyone, which is if one of your friends dies this round, you get a bonus attack. I think that's cool. That's very, very cool and very useful, because especially in Cities of Sigmar, you're going to run a lot of cheap, relatively chaff models, or you often will anyways. So whenever one of those dies, you can then, with as many of your guys as you want, that the only requirement is that one friend died this round. You can then use all your doubles on this ability to just get bonus attack actions. That's flippin' great. It's really, really good. So I really like the double. Interestingly though, you would think Phoenicium, so Phoenix Temple, that's about playing elites. Definitely is not. This double really lends itself to horde play, where you will lose guys, but it's not going to hurt you too much if you lose like a couple of fighters, and then that buffs your ability to fight back. You get a quad, of course, which gives you 1 bonus attack, and the fighter who did that bonus attack will then receive -2 damage from hits and crits against him to a minimum of 1 though. So say you're fighting an opponent who's 2-4 damage, for example, normal damage profile, you use that quad, and then suddenly when they attack you, they're going to deal 1 damage on the hit and 2 damage on the crit. That's really good. So that's really buff your survivability. That is for fighters that you want to stick around. So if you have a couple of key fighters, using the quad on one of those in the middle of a tough situation is really gonna keep them alive. Then you have a triple for adding half the value of the ability to the toughness for all friendly fighters within 6 inches. Again, I think that lends itself to a horde style of play, because for example, if you're running a lot of spearmen, these guys are very cheap, and they are toughness 3, of course. Why wouldn't they be? But using that triple, with a triple 3, even rolling only a triple 3, you would buff them to toughness 5. Suddenly you have a bunch of 65-point models who each have 10 wounds and toughness 5. That is insanely hard to chew through for many warbands, and yeah, that's gonna really up your survivability. What's kind of weird about this is that it does something very different from this, because you would think you want a friend to die for your double to kick in. On the other hand, your triple will definitely keep everyone alive more. It's a bit of a weird one, but I think the triple is not bad for this warband specifically. I often don't like abilities that add toughness, but that's because they normally add toughness to tough fighters. In this case, you can really add toughness to a lot of toughness 3 guys, and that's going to be brilliant. Also, if you're running elves, if you're running wildwood rangers, they have a lot of damage output, but they are only toughness 3 and 8 wounds. So if you can make all of them very survivable suddenly, that's going to be great. And then we have a quad for your mage characteristic, which is which is heal all your friendly units within 6 inches by the value. It's not bad, it's not great. I don't think I would bring a mage for that. Then we got Anvilgard, which is traditionally your... Oh, sorry, I should give like a quick thing about Phoenicium. Well, I kind of said it. You add survivability, you add attacks when you lose your guys. So this is the warband you want when you're playing a massive horde. Play 10 spearmen, or you could play more, a couple of leaders in there, and then run Phoenicium. I think you're gonna have good success with that. That's what Phoenicium is for. Then we have Anvilgard, which is traditionally, I think, Dark Elves. Yeah. So you get a double for all your fighters, which is in the first battle round you can add 1 to your movement and attack characteristics. That can be quite good. If you're running a lot of movement 5 guys, making the movement 6 is great, and then obviously the bonus attacks are always good. Sadly, it's only for the first battle round, so you're in a bit of a same position like Living City is, where you have to have fast movers to get the most out of this, because otherwise that's not going to be very useful. Although adding 1 to movement is always okay, but then if you only use that, you could just as well use rush. Then you have a quad, which is your fighter gets a bonus attack, and if that enemy was already damaged, you add half the value of the ability to your damage values. That's gonna be a ridiculous amount of damage. So normally I would say you're 5 inches apart, you're gonna move in with your first move, attack once, and then use that bonus attack, because then the enemy is already damaged, and suddenly you're gonna throw out a ton of damage against them, and that's gonna be pretty great. Then you got a triple that's very interesting as well, which is kill 1 friendly model within 3 inches of you. So you just right out kill them, remove them from the battlefield. And you add 1 to attacks and strength characteristic for all friends within 6 inches. So I think that's going to be good. I think that's going to be really good. You sacrifice one of your cheap or one of your very damaged models, and then you get a big buff to everyone around you, because adding 1 to attacks is already very powerful, and adding 1 to attacks and strength is really gonna up your damage output. I think this is pretty insane. Cool ability. And then we have a quad for your mages. It only works within 3 inches of you, so very close range. You throw a number of dice equal to the value, and each 2+ is 3 damage. We saw that for the first ability, but you also halve the toughness of your opponent. I don't think that's good. I really don't think so. 3 inches pretty prohibitive, and halving the toughness is not that great. So, yeah, don't like that much. However, I think Anvilgard will be pretty useful. It will require you to be fast, to have fast fighters, because otherwise you won't be able to use that double at all. And you'll need hordes, you'll need cheap models, otherwise you can't use your triple ability. You don't want to sacrifice a 100+ point model for this ability. So again, you're going to run cheap hordes. But maybe like you could mix up your horde. You could have cheap fighters mixed in with some powerful fighters, because the powerful ones would very much benefit a lot from then getting the buff from killing the cheap ones. So it's very interesting. I think Anvilgard is not bad. It's probably not my main competitive pick here, because the double isn't that good, and and the triple is a bit weird, but it's not bad. It's actually good, but it's kind of weird. So yeah, Anvilgard, good, certainly good, certainly good. Then we got Hallowheart. In Age of Sigmar, that's your mage city. That's a bit difficult to portray in Warcry, because magic is not a big thing in Warcry, and we'll see what that means. So we got a double for everyone, which is take -1 damage from hits and crits. That will massively up your survivability, no doubt about that. However, I don't think it's that good, because it only works for one fighter. Yeah, it's only a double, that's true, but you might want to use your doubles for other things. For onslaught, killing an enemy is always gonna stop more damage incoming than an ability that would reduce the damage. So I don't know, not a big fan of that one. Then we got a quad for all your fighters available. You roll a number of dice equal to half the value of the ability, and each 4+ gives you an extra wild dice for the next battle round. That's a risky one. So say you roll a quad 3 or 4, you're gonna roll 2 dice, and for a 4+, you're gonna get 1 wild dice. So you wasted a quad that you probably needed to spend a wild dice on getting, to get 1 extra wild dice next turn. That is not really worth it in my opinion. So yeah, oops, my bad. I don't see the quad being that useful. Then we got a triple for your mages, of course, because this is the mage city, which is add half the value to your toughness of all your friends within 6 inches. That's exactly the same that you get with the Phoenicium, only in this case you have to have a mage using it. So if you're running Hallowheart, you obviously want to run a mage character, or 2 even. We talked about this. This is not bad. This is quite good for cheap models around you, and for toughness 3 guys. And then we have a quad for your mages, which is add 1 to your attack characteristic for friendly models within 6 inches. If you wonder why this is a quad and not a triple, because many get this on a triple, many warbands. Well, It doesn't have any other requirements, which is good. And it works for melee and ranged. It does not specify that it's for attacks that have a range characteristic of 3 or less. So this you could also use with a bunch of ranged guys and actually give them extra attacks, which is quite interesting. So that's actually the only, well, apart from your triple, that's the only way to buff your ranged guys in an aura significantly. So Hallowheart could be another option to play with if you run mainly ranged. However, I still think Greywater Fastness is kind of gonna be your go-to there. Last but not least, we've got Tempest Eye, which is a double everyone gets. In the first battle round, you get a bonus. You get to move the value of the ability as a bonus move. I think that's very nice, because it's a bonus move, therefore you could still attack twice if you manage to get into combat with that. And for just a double, that's amazing. So if you have a cavalry guy who can move 10 inches, it's pretty likely that... Oh, sorry, he can't move 10 inches because he can only move the value, so... Not that good, but still it's gonna be good. Adding movement and a free action is always great. Then we get a quad everyone can use, which is picking a number of friends equal to the value. And keep in mind, this is not a leader ability. So if I can use this with any of my guys, and then I pick a number of friends equal to the value of the ability, and each of them can make a bonus move or bonus disengage action. That is pretty cool. That gives you a lot of extra movement. So between the double and the quad, you get a ton of potential extra movement. Added to that, you get a triple for your leader ability, which is adding the value of your move characteristic, adding the value of your ability to the move characteristic for everyone within 6 inches. So basically the war that the orcs get. So you have three abilities that will all massively boost your movement. And with that, I think Tempest Eye will be the best warband for your dwarfs. So that sounds funny, but the biggest downside to dwarfs for sure is their 3-inch movement. 3-inch movement is really, really bad. However, being able to run Tempest Eye would allow you to use your triple first battle round and get everyone in there, get the best out of your movement. And if you need more move after that, you can still use doubles for a couple of your fighters maybe, or use that quad to get another massive boost in movement. This just gives you a ton of options, and I like that quad is not tied to your leader, because so should your leader die, you're still not out of options here for movement. So this is your dwarf ability, honestly. You can absolutely use this warband without dwarfs though, and for some warbands that are already quick. And I think Tempest Eye is gonna be one of the more competitive choices, because movement beats most other things in Warcry. Movement and damage. This will not boost your damage at all, don't get me wrong. You only have access to Onslaught for damage buffs basically. But it will allow you to get to where you need to be, get on the objectives, get those treasures, run away with your fighters, catch up with other fighters. It's pretty solid. Yeah. So Tempest Eye, to me, together Tempest Eye and Hammerhall are the two warbands, city choices that I think are most competitive here. So what kind of list would I run? Now let's get into it. This is a list that I would run for both Tempest Eye and Hammerhall probably. So if I wanted to be very competitive, this is what I would do lists-wise. I would run double Assassins. Assassins are good. 170 points is relatively cheap for a lot of damage output, a lot of movement. When you're running Hammerhall, you need that damage output to to trigger your triple ability, which is one of your best abilities. So double assassin all the way. Run one in your dagger, one in your shield, and then I would get 5 guards and 2 wildwood rangers. And then split them up across those both warbands so you can buff your warbands massively with your assassins. Now, no matter if you're running Tempest Eye or Hammerhall, that's gonna, in both cases, gonna be great because you can either buff your movement or buff your attacks and really get control over the battlefield that way. On top of that, I would get 1 Wild Rider. The Wild Rider is pretty cheap, pretty efficient in terms of damage output as well, and of course very fast. And therefore the Wild Rider will allow you to do the things that you need to grab, that treasure that you need to grab, run away, make him your blood marked and run away from things and so on. So he's gonna be good. I would probably put him in the hammer together with one of your spear guys, and the hammer tends to come on last, so you then have your hammer, he comes on last, but in the second round, third round, whatever, but then he can still be relevant just because he's that fast. So I like the Wild Rider. And that would be my 10 models for 990 points. I think that's a very, very solid list. Now, saying that there is just a lot of options, I don't think it's possible to find the ideal list for Cities of Sigmar because there's too many options for that. You could go way more elite. You could say you're running more than 2 of the wildwood rangers. You could run a lot of wildwood rangers. You could go very shoot heavy. Just get a bunch of handgunners, throw in that rune lord, throw in a mage or even the handmaiden of the thorn, and go for a Greywater Fastness ranged attack. You could do a lot of dwarves. You can definitely play a dwarf list with a bunch of hammerers and then probably, yeah, I don't know, run the hammerers, run the keeper of the gate, maybe a gyrocopter for the fun of it, why not, and then go for Tempest Eye. So yeah, that's my take. So you have all the options. If you want to run elf heavy and you don't like my choice of the guards with spears, do it. Go all in with your Black Art Corsairs because they also cost 65 points and they are also very efficient. So you have many options to be efficient here, many great chaff options. So you can be as thematic or as competitive as you want with this warband, which I think is very good. Well, that's obviously down to lots of choice, but I think they did a great job with the different rules for the cities as well. They are not as differentiated as you think at first when you look at it, because it seems to be many abilities, but most of them are actually double. So you have 6 duplicate abilities for every warband, and then you have 4 unique ones. But the 4 unique abilities are different enough to really give a feel of difference for each city. And yeah, I think it's great warband, great time to be playing Warcry, guys. Let me know what you think, and thank you very much for watching.